All right, good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Monday Night Hammer. I am your host at run_the_sims. That's not my real name, though. My real name is Nick. I'm joined here by Michael__Sicoli. That's Michael Sicoli. Coming to us today as a broken man. Unfortunately, well, walk us through what happened to you just now. Well,
So
tonight.
it's been a fun season. I've coasted to an 11-1 start in my Comac home dynasty league. Something where I won 2 years ago, went to the finals last year, fell a little bit short, and I decided to load up this year. I decided, it was time for a trade. I traded J.K. Dobbins and a first about 2 weeks ago to get Christian McCaffrey. There was no Chuba Hubbard in the deal as the owner did not have him, and it was another team who was an annoying owner. So I got Christian McCaffrey. I have been incredibly happy for 2 weeks. That did not matter.
Just ramping back up. He was looking like he was ramping back up, not scoring touchdowns and still dropping 28 points on you.
Yep, and as we will get into real shortly with all the injuries of the week, because there were several to talk about. McCaffrey is now done for the season with an ankle injury. It was originally reported that it was a rolled ankle, nothing too serious. Tests were positive. All right. And then the Panthers decided that we just don't care about playing football. It's week 13, and who cares? So they decided that it was long past time, and Christian McCaffrey is done for the season. And that would be the news of the week.
Yeah, so let's jump right into the injuries. Christian McCaffrey done for the fantasy season, done for the real season. It seems like the Panthers are packing it in because the Cam Newton experiment, as fun as it is not it. The Sam Darnold experiment, as fun as it was, it's not it. The PJ Walker experiment, as fun as it really never was, it's not it. So yeah, they're putting them on the shelf. That's a very, very expensive decoration on the shelf right now. But I mean, it's a trend, and I'm not going to victory lap injuries, but this is why I draft the way that I draft. And I got a lot of teams with Alex Collins and Damian Harris holding it down in RB1 and RB2 that are sitting at a winning record and only getting better every time something like this happens. So again, at this very moment, after a week like we just had, we're going to get to another running back injury here soon. 2 more, actually. This is why zero RB can work. I'm not saying it's the only thing that works, but this is the thesis behind it. Is as the season goes on and these injuries start to pile up, you're not losing those high draft capital people. And instead, hopefully you didn't take AJ Brown like I did, and you have another receiver that's dominating, like a Steph Diggs or Tyreek Hill, or maybe a solid tight end like Travis Kelce. Again, it's been a pretty I don't know about you, but let's step back for a second here. I'm talking about just more big picture stuff here on what strategies are working. The heavy RB, heavy wide receiver.
It's definitely something that's worth mentioning now of all times as well, because I mean, look at the landscape. You spent top picks on Christian McCaffrey, he's gone. You spent top picks on Saquon Barkley, he's gone. Zeke Elliott's right now dealing with a knee sprain that's lingering and it's impacting his play. It's impacting his workload. Alvin Kamara has missed the last few weeks. Derrick Henry obviously has missed several weeks and will miss more. So, I mean, there's a real argument for it. It's something we like to forget because then Jonathan Taylor is unbelievably amazing.
Exactly. Yeah, that's the thing.
And there are rights and wrongs to it. But, the fact remains that these running backs do tend to find themselves on the shelf more than wide receivers do.
Yeah. And there is a lot of debate about what you will go heavy RB early, you go 1 RB early, you go no RBs. And the idea is that you get a Jonathan Taylor that gives you that crazy edge every single week. But the problem with that is that's in my opinion, a lottery ticket that is not the odds on it are not as good as investing in wide receiver and tight end early.
Sure.
So, and if you were to stack things up, like the first rounders, let's look at the first and second round. What position is the most injured right now at this moment? It's running back. Yeah. Wide receiver has its fair share of injuries. Tight end has its fair share of injuries, but the guys you're depending on at the running back position, by and large, in the first couple of rounds have all had extended absences. We won't dwell. Yeah, go ahead.
I'll add one more point. There's another point of what are the 2 big waiver wire picks of the year? There haven't been. I think there's been one smash, and then everything else has kind of been met. but the two big pickups of the year, I'm going to
CPAT?
count Cordell Patterson. Cordell Patterson has running back eligibility, and Elijah
Mhm.
Mitchell, both running backs that were not drafted at all, that were picked up for nothing. So
Yeah. And then on top of that, like if you waited, Leonard Fournette just absolutely beasting. But yeah, so another running back injury here, Dalvin Cook. He's going to be back for the real life playoffs, but unfortunately, it does not sound like they're going to fire him up within the rest of the fantasy season. I don't know that he's going to go on IR, but he literally has 2 torn tendons in his shoulder, 2 labrum tears. So like he has no functioning shoulders. Uh, Another running back type of player, but he's actually a wide receiver, is Deebo Samuel. He's going to miss a game or two, but he's been doing so much for you and your team that I don't know that you'd need him, hopefully, for these next 2 weeks to get you into the playoffs. But it is disappointing. But he should be back for fantasy playoffs. That's exciting. We had a lot of injuries here, so I'm just going to rail through them. If you want to talk about anything, just interrupt me.
go for it.
Miles Sanders, he returned to that game. I brought this up because I do not want people to get it mistaken that Boston Scott's workload was based off of this injury. Boston Scott was mixing in plenty before he rolled that ankle. Jordan Howard out. He could be back soon-ish. Unfortunately, Miles Sanders, exciting player. Shout out Penn State, but you're not going to be depending on him coming back off of injury and helping you in the fantasy playoffs. I mean, it'd be great if he did, but this
we've seen this
backfield.
story, we've seen this movie play out too many times with Miles Sanders. So he's 100%, he tends to help your team. If he's not 100% and he's not getting that volume, then what are you going to do? And then you still have Jalen Hurts vulturing, rushing
touchdowns. Yeah, for sure. And Boston Scott got the one running back goal line carry in that game, which and that might have even been before the ankle injury. I'm not sure, but Dan Arnold has a bit of a knee sprain, something going on with his knee. He's done for the fantasy season, 2 to 4 weeks. I can't believe we're at that stage of the fantasy season where we're already these 2 to 4 week injuries are like done for the season as far as we're concerned.
We're 3 weeks, not even 2 weeks. It's kind of crazy. I mean, we're coming down to that wire. That's why these games right now are just so crucial. It's really, you got to hit on these. You got to, if you need to move, if you're, there's no more time to wait.
Yeah, and that's why we're spending a little bit more time on injuries here, because it's important to understand who if you have Dan Arnold, drop him. He's not going to be useful to you. Drop Dan Arnold. Drop Christian McCaffrey. Drop Dalvin Cook. Don't drop Deebo Samuel. Don't drop Miles Sanders. Not in Dynasty, of course, not in a keeper league, of course, but these players that are done for the next two weeks plus, they're no use to you. And we can touch base a little bit here on what kind of other decisions we can be making at this point in the year. Maybe we'll spend a little bit of time on that before we hop into that little DFS segment I brought up to you yesterday. But Trey Sermon, who cares? But he's probably done. Randall Cobb, not meaningful contributor, but he's got a little bit of a groin issue he's working on.
Randall Cobb had a game this week. Randall Cobb, it was frustrating to watch, and maybe you could say it was because Devontae Adams was being covered by Jalen Ramsey. And Devontae Adams beat out Ramsey in that game, but Randall Cobb had a nice little day for himself.
Yeah, so he's probably going to miss, I would say, at least a week, which means a lot for MVS and Lazard. CeeDee Lamb should be good to go this week. Jerry Jones almost got him through that concussion protocol. And I say Jerry Jones because I can't imagine being a trainer for the Cowboys. And this is why, folks, we have an independent neurologist that's not associated with the league, doesn't get paid by the league, that does the final clear. It's not a good idea to clear someone on a concussion after 4 days. Just not supposed to do it.
He was still out there practicing, and that's just not. It's a risk that he should be assuming.
That's why that last stage is there, and the last stage is that independent neurologist. Justin Fields, I haven't heard anything about him. Do you get anything on Justin Fields' ribs? You got to think they probably want him to get back in there and get a couple more games under his belt before the end of the season, right?
You'd think, but at the same time, Matt Nagy's coaching for his life, and Andy Dalton did just win him a game on Thanksgiving. Justin Fields, honestly, I like Justin Fields a lot, and I think he's an infinitely better option than Andy Dalton, but Dalton might be the player who gives the Bears the best chance to win. And that matters to Nagy. Right now, Justin Fields it elevated from bruised ribs. Now it's cracked ribs. There's no timetable to throw as of 3 days ago. I'd
Mm-hmm.
expect him to be held out this week in terms of he could be held out for the next couple of weeks just because Nagy wants to try to win games. He might think Dalton's the guy to do that with because he doesn't have the mind to build a playbook around Justin Fields.
Okay. Yeah. Interesting. Michael Carter. What are we doing with him if you don't have an IR slot? He's probably out another week. The practice reports on him are going to be really important. Hold on to Michael Carter for now. But if we get word that he goes on IR this week and you don't have an IR slot and you're right on the bubble making the playoffs, I don't know that you can hold him.
Well, he's on the IR right now. So
okay. All right. So it's another 2 weeks.
He got moved right before the game. So that means he was out for week 12 against Houston. He's out next week against Philadelphia. He's out next week against New Orleans. The earliest he can come back is the first week of the fantasy playoffs against Miami. Now, that's a great matchup. Jacksonville next week is also a great matchup. But that's a long time to hold someone for a role I'm not 100% guaranteeing he immediately returns to. And it's also a guarantee that he returns at the front end of that timetable because that injury is kind of painful. So
nobody will want to drop him though. I'm not expecting to see him.
At this point, I'm not sure who's on the wire that's worth dropping for him. So it's all situational. If you're in a shallow league where maybe the better players have been on the wire just because it's an 8-person league, 10-person league, then maybe you could cut Michael Carter and just move on with it. But if you have the spot to, I'm trying to think of a name. Do you have a name that you could throw out that who would you rather have, Michael Carter or? I'm trying to think.
Oh, man.
All my
Michael Carter or Jamar Jefferson with Swift out at least a week.
Let's switch it to Jamal Williams because I have zero interest in Jamar Jefferson.
Okay, I brought up Jamar Jefferson just because I'm imagining that Jamal Williams is probably not on a waiver.
Or let's say this. Let's say Madison's own. Let's say Keenan Nwangu, the Vikings running back, who should step into that 1B role on the Vikings. Maybe more. He had that kickoff return touchdown. He's showing some real juice. He played great in the preseason. That's a rookie if people don't know. They don't. But that's a player who could be stepping into a bigger role than expected. Would you rather him? Or would you rather hold Michael Carter? That's the name that people juggling. That's a waiver wire.
I'm probably. I don't know.
If I'm a contender and I'm locked into the playoffs, I might hold Michael Carter. If I'm to get in, if I'm in that 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and I'm still in that running, I think I'll hold I think I'll take the chance on Keen. I apologize for mispronouncing the name, but Nwangu making that impact immediately.
Yeah, Jamal Williams is actually only 37% rostered, so he's gonna appear in the old waiver wire article tomorrow for sure. Let's see here. We also have Tevin Coleman. I mean, just swap out the Jets backfield there. They do have a couple of cake matchups coming up. Those are good moves. I guess tune into that waiver wire article. I'm going to spend a little bit of extra time on that just because this week is a really important week for the waiver wire. And it seems as though it's pretty barren, but this week it's better than it has been the last few weeks, but it's still pretty rough. But there's definitely some meaningful moves that you can make in order to set yourself up for the next 3 weeks, which are really, really important.
Yeah, for sure. In a league where I have Christian McCaffrey, and I decided, you know what? McCaffrey's back. Montgomery's back. I'm ready to buy in fantasy playoffs. I'm sitting
Here we come.
Here we go. I went and bought Adam Thielen. And, McCaffrey's out now. That's fun. That's great. But Adam Thielen went out there and won me that week. He dropped 25, and he wasn't too hard to get. He was a 23-second Robbie Anderson and a couple other pieces. That's all it took to get a top 15 option because he's 30 years old. If you're a dynasty owner right now and people are devaluing on age constantly, start looking at those 1, 2, 3 win rosters. Look at those fringe teams that aren't probably not going to make it. They might be offloading players, and those veterans are always nice buys. Easily, maybe.
All right, we have AJ Brown, which I mentioned earlier is the bane of my existence. They placed him on IR, so he's out for this week was week 1. Theoretically, week 2 will be this upcoming week, and then week 3 will be the last week of the fantasy regular season. So theoretically, he could come back for your first round matchup in the playoffs if it starts week 15. Best case scenario, which is not likely because you had to spend a second on AJ Brown, you have a bye. And because starting him in week 15, if he's back week 15, I don't know about that.
See, now here's a more important caveat, because I'll give it to you right here. The bye doesn't count towards the IR. That's an issue, because that week does not count towards that. It's 3 games missed, not 3 weeks missed. So that week, that's an added right there of that's a long time to go without him. If I don't have an IR spot, if I'm a strong contender, I got my playoff spot locked in. I might have a bye coming up. I'm holding him. But again, that's a player I'm open to. I really am open. You got to make those harsh decisions. If
as someone who has a lot of AJ Brown, I wasn't going to be starting him week 15 anyway, just because I feel like he also has some mental health stuff going on. I can imagine that this IR placement is a little bit or probably mostly chest, physical, but also, I mean, just if you're not able to rehab, if you're not able to go out there and have your mind right and get through some of this, like the NFL is a brutal season. He's probably going to take at least a week or two just to get himself right mentally too. So when he comes back, like, you don't know, is he going to be in good shape? Like, is there going to be lingering stuff? Like, because I don't get the sense that like the injury, I don't know if AJ Brown gets placed on IR, if AJ Brown is in a good spot mentally. That's a lot of conjecture, but
yeah, it feels like too much conjecture. But at the very least, I mean, he's out you can't play in week 13 on his bye. He's out week 14 against Jacksonville, and he's out week 15 against Pitt. So the earliest you get him back is week 16, and by then you could be out of the playoffs. If I have my bye week locked in, again, I'll hold AJ Brown because why not? You see what you get back. But then you also have to factor in, let's say he comes back on the earliest end of the timetable. Again, week 16 is the earliest you can get him back. So if he comes back 16, are you immediately playing it? No, if you can avoid it, you might not. But then all of a sudden you're in your fantasy finals, and you might be playing a guy you haven't trusted all season. And at that point, you got to realize that it might just not be worth it. So that's a big name that it could be a landmine you're dropping on your waiver wire.
So if you're an underdog in your semifinal matchup, like fire up AJ Brown and just ride the lightning. But if you're favored, you don't need to make that. If you're favored, you don't need to make that that play. So I mean that like and probably like my most important league, the one that I care about. Everyone has that one league, my one dynasty league that with my a bunch of my friends. I have AJ Brown. It's unlikely that I'll play him in week 16, but a lot can change from between now and then. So we'll monitor the reports. We're gonna have a very, very close eye on AJ Brown. I hope he gets better mentally and physically. Another one that's a real dagger for the zero RB teams after I was victory lapping a little bit earlier is Darren Waller going down. It seems like he's week to week, which you never want to hear that. I hear week to week, I'm thinking at least a game. And then that second game, if he's back, you're a little nervous about it. And again, not a great time for Darren Waller to go down as well. And then finally, DeAndre Swift, the prince that was promised from the running back dead zone, the round 3 running backs that nobody was touching running backs in round 3. He's likely out this week based on Dan Campbell's report. It's tough because why keep throwing him out there? I mean, I don't know. Dan Campbell's a competitor though, so he'll probably get him back in there, get him some reps. He's on that rookie contract. You gotta get everything you can out of those running backs before they start to break down. We're seeing that from CMC now. And we already mentioned a couple: Jamar Jefferson, Jamal Williams. I'm really,
I'll look up his name.
The last name starts with an O. It's very similar to Albert O. I got to get the pronunciation down.
It's most likely going to be the Jamal Williams and Jamar Jefferson, but Godwin Igwebuike, I really hope
that's close. That's close.
Odds are I probably am, but I mean that's a name to keep in mind. You're picking up the first 2 before you are, but if Godwin comes out, has a surprisingly large workload, you're not going to be surprised.
Yeah.
So
because Jamal Williams is banged up too, man. Like they haven't really, when he came back, they weren't really mixing him in because I don't think he's. I mean, no one's 100%, but I think he's pretty banged up still, and he's active because they need to run the ball. Yeah. So again, if he goes down, I mean, Jamar Jefferson, we're going to be talking about Jamar Jefferson is like that one playoff running back that costs you 0. He's on a terrible team, but Dan Campbell likes to run the ball, and it's really hard to get 30 touches on the waiver wire right now. And Jamar Jefferson could get 30 touches if Jamal Williams goes down.
He has to be able to catch the ball because, I mean, we've seen many times that bad running backs, they can get volume, but it doesn't mean anything if those touches are meaningless. Rex Burkhead got 18 carries in week 11. Nobody cared because it went for 18 carries for like 50 yards. And, I mean, so it just comes down to who's going to catch the ball. That's why Swift is so valuable because he catches those balls and he's a great player, so he does something with it. If you can get at least the former of that, you know, we'll see. And I don't think Jamal Williams is going. Jamal Williams caught, 3, 4, 5 balls last week? So in half a game when Swift played for half of it. So Jamal Williams is the pickup. Jamar Jefferson will be the secondary. And Godwin Igwebuike is the guy to keep your mind on.
Okay. All right.
Deep dynasty pickup.
Yeah, so let's hop into it here. I think this is more important than we'll get to some DFS stuff eventually on this show. But I really think it's important that we kind of talk like, all right, we got 2 more weeks left in the fantasy football regular season for most league formats. Do we have any? I'm kind of hitting you on the spot here. Are there any moves you're making right now to prepare for the playoffs?
Well, I said one before, the buying of veterans in leagues where I'm contenders. Like, you have to realize this in Dynasty Fantasy Football. It's hard to say, and I said it months ago, but it's much more critical now about you're playing fantasy football, Dynasty or not, to win. When you play to win, you have to make the moves necessary to do so. It might not feel great. It felt terrible to send a second-round pick for Adam Thielen, to be honest. Even in 23, which is a class I'm very excited about. But Adam Thielen's a guy who's going to be putting up very relevant fantasy numbers. He's going to win me weeks. And you're playing to win. You're not playing for next year. You're not playing for the year after. If you're in this point, you're in contention, you want to win, put yourself in position to do so. Don't be afraid to send those picks. Don't be afraid to send younger assets. I've been tentatively shopping T. Higgins, someone I'm really happy who just off this week. Somebody haven't really done it this year as much. And I got a haul for him that would have helped me win this year. I would have made that decision. Because at the end of the day, you're trying to win. And options in Dynasty and some waiver wires right now, because redraft right now is a little bit shallow, it's not great. So look to those teams that have kind of checked out a little bit. Look to those teams that are, maybe they feel like they need to make a move too. Everyone's antsy right now. If you're in contention, you're antsy. It's a weird year.
So kind of in that same vein, I was talking to one of my friends in that Dynasty League, and this kind of happened by accident. But we've traded 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So I've traded him, or he's traded me 8 players, and I've traded him 7 players. But this is starting from back in the off season all the way up till almost the end of the regular fantasy football season. So here are the players, and I just kind of want to walk you through. You'll notice a little bit of a pattern here, right? I am on the buying end of more of the veterans, right? If you're looking at the age, can you see this here?
No, sorry. You were breaking up, so I didn't quite understand, but now I got it.
Okay, so this is kind of like a trade breakdown of me and one other team, and it's just been a really good trade environment between the two teams. And I trade with a lot of other teams as well, but not this much. So this was just a good way to look at like my team started with these players: Terry McLaurin, DJ Moore, Matt Stafford, my first round pick. This is a little bit of an earlier first. It's from another team: Marquise Brown, Rondale Moore, and Mike Davis. Okay. So through the course of, let's say, about 7 months, I moved all of those players to this team. All right. We got Terry McLaurin at 26, DJ Moore at 24, Matt Stafford's a spring chicken at 33, obviously a young player here in the rookie draft. Marquise Brown's 24, and Rondale Moore is 21. And then Mike Davis, the corpse of Mike Davis, I made out on that one. I moved him preseason before he kind of crashed and burned, and CPAT lit the world on fire. Now, what I'm buying is Devontae Adams, which the edge he gives you this season is incredible.
Yes, he
if
does.
You're a contending team, like, that's great. And is he going to be the same next year? I don't know. I'm not worried about that because this team is in contention. Aaron Rodgers is almost 40 years old. Not typically someone you're buying in Dynasty, but I did because I had Ben Roethlisberger as my QB2 when the Sam Darnold experience decided to flop. I needed to make a move. But you can still, in these deals, you can mix in youth. I got a 22-year-old T. Higgins, right? I had to move a 24-year-old or 20. Like, that's the thing. People, like, you can move a 24-year-old promising wide receiver for a younger rookie who hasn't quite peaked yet, who's been disappointing. That's probably one of my, like, T. Higgins air yards model. Oh, my gosh. Touchdown.
Yeah, T. Higgins is fantastic.
Yeah. Mark Andrews, if you look here, you see they're winning by about 14%. However, Mark Andrews and tight end premium is a cheat code, and this does not take tight end premium into account. This is Dynasty Process Trade Calculator, by the way. It is awesome. Free.
Free to use.
Easy to use.
This is the one of choice for me if I do go to trade calculators, which I don't tend to. I never rely on, but sometimes.
Oh my gosh, I lean on them so hard, dude.
I don't trust calculators for a while. I saw once upon a time when I was using one that I do not recommend. I will not. I won't blow them out here, but it was something like OJ Howard coming off the Achilles tear was more valuable than, and I kind of lost it. But regardless, fantasy football calculators. This is a good one again. Dynasty Process, right?
Yeah, Dynasty Process Trade Calculator. And I like it because, like, I'll put an unbalanced trade in that I know. Like, for example, today I was playing around with like DeAndre Swift and Javonte Williams. I wanted to see what the market had for DeAndre Swift versus Javonte Williams, and the difference between the two. Can you guess what it is? What do you think the difference between those two?
Be more, man. Maybe second round pick.
So that's where I went initially. This is probably, I don't know that it updated with Javonte's kind of breakout game where he finally put up 20 plus points. And did he score a touchdown? I think he did.
He did. He
finally scored a touchdown. And DeAndre Swift is obviously hurt right now. So trying to make that deal right now with another contender, not going to get it done. I'm trying to move DeAndre Swift to someone else for Javonte and a first. Dynasty Process Trade Calculator kind of puts it there. I don't think realistically you get that deal done. So I'm a psycho, and I'll probably add somebody else in on the other side, and then come back and add him a third piece. So that's kind of how my trades usually end up with a 1-to-1, and it usually ends up being like a 4-for-4. Like that to me is where. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, no, to jump in with that exact example as well. Like if there's one player I wish I could buy, and I said ever since August, I said in August, I'm going to say it again. I'm going to say it every single week I can. That Javonte Williams was this year's Jonathan Taylor league winner type of thing. It's not Jonathan Taylor because he got forced into the role due to injury, but Javonte Williams is going to win people fantasy football championships. He's going to be the Cam Akers of this year type of thing, and it's going to be fantastic. You cannot get him anymore. That window's closed. I've tried so hard because he was my favorite RB prospect to watch. I still have Najee ahead of him, but he was right there as my number 2.
Yeah. Rounding out this trade, Leonard Fournette, 27 years old. He's about to turn 27. Just absolutely crushing, but who knows what next year looks like. But I traded for him. Melvin Gordon, again, 28. The sun is setting on his career. It seems like he'll probably get a little bit of work as kind of like a 1B somewhere after this year. He's kind of already in that role. And I'll be honest with you, like he has won me weeks. He has put up scores that I wasn't expecting and he was basically free.
He's not watched.
He was a throw-in. You know what I mean? Like Melvin Gordon was a throw-in that has won me weeks. Julio Jones has been very disappointing. I hope he has a little bit of a late. I'm not expecting a whole lot out of him though. And then a 2022 fourth is basically worthless. Do not like those are what I'm throwing in just to make the trade even in terms of 3 for 3 or 4 for 4. But who knows?
If you're a first-time dynasty owner, especially in this class of 2022, thirds and fourths are equivalent to fab and high fives.
Yeah.
It's really nothing to write home about. Thirds can be nicer pick. Like the thirds are always total crapshoots, but in this class, it's really not going to be too great.
In the class, not this past one, but the class before this, like third round, you had like Chase Claypool and Antonio Gibson. That's very rare. That's very rare.
Definitely rare. So it's if you like always when you could. That was my mindset with the McCaffrey trade. As much as I love J.K. Dobbins, was I love the first round pick, but first round picks are not guaranteed. Someone just spend a first round pick on Trey Sermon. Yeah, that first round pick could be Trey Sermon. So moving unknown for known is how you win fantasy football championships.
Yeah.
Don't be afraid to send those picks. It's the Rams motto. And it hasn't necessarily worked out for the Rams, but it works better in fantasy football because it's much easier to get those picks back.
Yeah, and the past couple of years have really spoiled us. This is just another add-in for just general dynasty strategy. The last couple of draft classes have spoiled us from a quarterback standpoint. And we're kind of seeing that this year. This year's rookie quarterbacks are a little bit more in line with typical quarterback play for rookies, where they're not really putting up monster fantasy numbers like Justin Herbert did last year, like Joe Burrow did before he went down. So like I said, this is more of like a normal year. Rookie quarterbacks typically take, like Dak Prescott, Carson Wentz, big years, second year players. They typically need at least a year to kind of get acclimated.
Trevor Lawrence is such a buy right now. It's unbelievable. If anybody's doubting Trevor Lawrence,
I don't know that anybody is.
I maybe not the Trevor Lawrence, people who are rostering him, but I've had to defend Trevor Lawrence on way too many plays, and it's solely because of how well Mac Jones is playing.
I mean, I'm not a tape guy, but I've heard that he has not looked great at times, but he's doing all the things that you want your fantasy quarterback to do.
I watched 3 straight plays where he got the ball, evaded a tackle, sprinted out to his right, and then just airmailed the ball. So he does the great job of immediately he's under pressure. Immediately somebody gets away from him. He's breaking a tackle. He slips through the pocket, moves around, but then he'll miss the receiver because it has to be a super tight window because the receivers aren't separating. It's a broken down play because the line isn't good. The scheme is abysmal. The weapons are injured. Trevor Lawrence deserves better than Jacksonville, and that's it.
Yeah. That's true. But that's what happens when you're the first overall pick. It giveth and it taketh away.
It does.
All right. Another little tip I wanted to throw in there is load up on your handcuffs now, right? So now is when you should be trading. Well, Alexander Madison is like always the best example. You can't make that move now. But now is when if you're the Zeke, all the running backs are already hurt.
Pollard. Yeah.
What running backs are still healthy that you could go buy their handcuffs? You should have been buying the handcuffs 2 weeks ago, I guess.
You can get Marlon Mack for a fourth.
Marlon Mack. Oh,
I mean, Marlon Mack's a healthy scratch at times, but that's a guy that, Nyheim Hines will have a bigger role, but Marlon Mack will get the carries if Jonathan Taylor's working. Oh, my God. And
are we really advocating to go get Marlon Mack right now?
If you want to talk about running backs with high upside, if their starter goes down, who has a higher one than Marlon Mack? If you want to go with Rojo in that aspect, I don't know if Rojo's a throw.
Oh, yes. We're buying Rojo.
Rojo's terrible. Like, that's the thing. All these running backs are not good. I don't think Ronald Jones is a good running back, but they're backups for a reason, and they're invaluable roles should the starter go down. I think Rojo fits that category. I think Marlon Mack fits that category.
Who's the guy in Pittsburgh if Najee were to go down?
Well, the guy in Pittsburgh is nobody. No, there's nobody. There are also instances where the backup doesn't matter, where this offensive line in Pittsburgh is so abysmal. But if I had to pick one, it would be Benny Snell. I don't know why, but they seem to be throwing Benny Snell out there instead of Anthony McFarland. And Benny Snell got the first 2 touches for, I think, Pittsburgh last week. Which
another good one. He hasn't looked great. Maybe Darrell Henderson just looks better, but Sony Michel is a good handcuff right now.
Yep.
Uninspiring, but that's the type of guy you want to go after.
They all are inspiring until they aren't. Khalil Herbert, if you can get Khalil Herbert right now because now the shine's off of him. He showed that he can.
That's a good call too.
He can do great things with that workload, and I am the utmost confident that they'll give it right back to him if Montgomery were to go down. And running backs that are already injured, we all know they have a higher inclination of being re-injured, as sad as it is.
Yep. If you can get your hands on Darrell Williams, he's a good buy. I think people are probably still holding him just because CAH might not be fully healthy. Devontae Booker, if Barkley were to go back down. Again, these are gross things, but they should be basically free. If they're not, then don't make the deal.
Don't overpay.
And we're talking redraft and dynasty. So redraft, like in redraft leagues, like if your trade deadline hasn't passed already, like send, I don't know.
If you need trade a defense on a good week,
Yeah, you can trade Fab. You can trade Fab for these guys.
Trade Fab. You trade a defense that has a good matchup. You trade, I don't know, a consistent kicker who's been doing good, and you just stream after that.
Yeah,
It shouldn't take much because these guys are doing nothing for the other team. They're on handcuffing. They can't provide points unless an injury happens. And if they need to win, they might need someone who can actually do that.
Yeah, and this is, I mean, we start talking about like a gentleman's game. You know what I mean? Like, look for those spots. Like this is where you really zone in and like look at your opponent. What do they need? If you're in a good spot and you got a bench spot and you're not sure, like you don't need a receiver, but you know they do, and you got Fab, block them. Like waiver blocking is a very real strategy that I don't think enough people take advantage of.
Yep, that's a real thing. I every finals, we're not at that point, but every finals, because I tend to get to a lot of them. It's not a big deal.
Oh my gosh, this guy.
When it happens, those 1 o'clock, 1 o'clock happen, it locks in, boom. Everyone that's on my bench says 1 o'clock, cut. They could be stars. They're gone. They're cut for backups that are playing the 4 o'clock slate. Then 4 o'clock comes, I cut them on the 4 o'clock slate. And then I add people who are on the 8 o'clock, and then Monday night. It just keep doing it because all it takes is a pregame injury, and all of a sudden they're scrambling for someone to pick up, and then who knows? And
every edge.
It's more exclusive to leagues that let you do that. I know ESPN has that as a locked roster once they play. Sleeper does not. And it's really exclusive for finals week unless you just have that open bench spot. Yeah, but that's something to always keep an eye out for. If there's a handcuff on the wire and you have, an open spot or something you do not care about, pick up the handcuff because that could be a league winner right there.
Yeah, and this is tough. The one last one I'll add in here is take a look at the defenses that are available. Take a look at their playoff schedule. Like now is the time to go get stash a defense with a really soft playoff schedule. So pretty much find out who's playing Detroit, who's playing the Jags, who's playing whoever, and stash them. Stash them now if you have room for them.
Yeah, it's a great point.
Yeah, you'll just kind of keep your ear to the ground too, because a lot of people will be touting those defenses soon. Maybe I'll throw some in the waiver article once I take a look here. Some defenses to stash. Yeah, we'll set the people up there with a pretty good strategy. I know you had a rant lined up. We're a little over time, but I'll
keep it within a minute even. We're gonna end this by the 40-minute mark. We're at 37.5. I'll keep it right now. So we got Washington versus Seattle right now. For this Monday night game that nobody asked for, nobody wants. But Russell Wilson's gonna come out here and he's gonna have a good game because he's going against Washington, which has allowed a obscene amount of passing yards and receiving yards to the weapons on the other side of the ball. That secondary can't do anything. So Tyler Lockett should have a bounce-back day. He had a decent week last week amid a terrible Russell Wilson game. DK Metcalf, you're firing him up there. That's Seattle right there. Me personally, I need 7.6 out of Terry McLaurin tonight, and that's a player who has been traditionally really reliable on volume. Hasn't been as much this year thanks to horrific quarterback play. So Terry McLaurin, I think, will still have a good game. The Seattle defense has also not been too kind, or has not been very solidified, fortified, doesn't matter. Seattle is not the Legion of Boom anymore. Logan Thomas is coming back tonight, as is Curtis Samuel. Both should be on a pitch count, but I'm also very excited to see how both do. I think one of them has a good day. I think Logan Thomas is the guy I'd line up. Seattle's also allowed a lot of points to the tight end. Logan Thomas, it matters. Ricky Seals-Jones is doubtful, so that means he's pretty much out. Logan Thomas will be forced into that role. I think Washington stays in this game. I don't think it's a blowout at all. Vegas thinks it's a pick'em. So I think Logan Thomas could be an interesting stream. You're playing all your stars. You're playing your all the stars right there. And I think Antonio Gibson's due for a bit of a bounce back. His snaps jumped from around 35% to 56% last week.
He's not getting healthier.
He's not going to be ever full 100% this season. It's not going to happen. But he's getting healthier. He's continuing to be not on the injury report. He had the extra day this week on Monday. So I think we can expect a better night out of Antonio Gibson as well.
Yeah, I hope so. Actually, I don't care because I got rid of him before the season. But anyway, I had CMC and Antonio Gibson, and I sold them for DeAndre Swift, and Antonio Gibson was part of a deal for Lamar Jackson. So
I don't need this, Mr. Grohl.
I got DeAndre Swift and a first. So I don't know. Maybe I should just I should just write more about my trades because honestly, that's probably where
Before we sign off, I'll give a quick little shout out to Doug, who immediately hopped on the stream and asked if I was wearing my girlfriend's sweater. This jacket was an amazing buy at TJ Maxx for a very cheap price because I love TJ Maxx, and it's fluffy and it's comfortable, so it's fine.
Yeah, I that's on me.
Your kimono, but it's my jacket.
That's on me for not asking about it. I'm glad you brought that up.
Oh.
Preposterous. A preposterous get up today. You look like Macklemore.
Yeah. I do not care. There's nothing you can say. I have hoodies on hoodies right now.
It does look comfortable. It does look comfortable. Calling you Macklemore was unfair.
Hey,
it's bizarre.
Listen, nothing wrong with calling me Macklemore. This is an awesome jacket. I'm
all
right. He's got the fashion sense.
All right, that closes out Terry McLaurin, 7.6 points. Let's do this. Antonio Gibson to the moon. Logan Thomas scores a touchdown. How about that?
Yeah.
This has been the Monday Night Hammer. I'm Nick Garral. You can find me on Twitter at run_the_Sims. This is my good friend Michael Sicoli. You can find him at Michael__Sicoli. This has been presented by For Fantasy's Sake. You can find all of our content at forfantasysakeqc.com. And finally, our sponsor, the Mobile Party Experience. Hit them up if you're in the Quad Cities region for any of your mobile party needs. Take it easy, everybody. Have a good one.